Started. Aurora, ready?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Very good. So, welcome everyone. This is Andres Banet from Speaker Hub, and it's my pleasure to welcome here Aurora, who's going to be our speaker today. And she's going to cover a fantastic topic in the very first episode of the Speaker Hub Masterclass, which is entitled Get Picked, Tips and Tricks and Tools for Landing a Conference Speaking Spot. Now, we just wanted to say hi and a short introduction so you see us, see our faces, but since the focus of the attention should be the presentation itself, and in order to make sure that everyone who's even on a lower bandwidth can hear us and see the slides very well, we're going to be turning off the camera in a second. So this is our faces, our presenters. I'm based right now in Brussels. Aurora is on the west coast of the US, and everyone is connected thanks to the webinar software. So I'll turn off the and proceed with some technicalities to share with you. So we have a chat box at the bottom left corner of the page, and feel free to ask questions at any point, or if you have comments or feedback, feel free to type it there. As mentioned before, the recording of this webinar is going to be available within a few days, and it's going to be uploaded on, we'll see which channels, but it's definitely going to be accessible to everyone who is on the call and even those who may have missed it. And just one technical note, if you could turn your phone off or mute it and your email program, that will probably help you get a better experience in the next 45 minutes with Aurora. So I think without any further ado, I pass the floor to Aurora, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andres. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be with everyone today. All of us, I think, are here because we want very much to be able to move our public speaking forward. So I'm wondering how things would change for your speaking activity if you could compose a speaker proposal that just was so compelling that it screamed must include for a conference organizer. If you could solve the mystery of what it takes to be selected. And if you could take your next speaker proposal from being rejected to accepted. I'm a communication strategist. I've been working in communications for over 20 years, and I'm an expert in Speakers Bureau management for corporate clients. And I've placed hundreds of speakers at local, national, international events for many of my clients, many of them Fortune 50 companies. So I'm delighted to be able to be here today with you to share what I've learned, and so that you can do what I've been able to do for them. Along with a colleague, we've written an Amazon public speaking bestseller called Get Picked, Tips, Tricks, and Tools for Creating an Irresistible Speaker Proposal. And it is truly the secret sauce that we used to become successful in supporting our clients. So we're going to be sharing a little bit of that with you today. There's also additional content in that book, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that if you don't get all of your questions answered on this session. Public speaking is all about positioning you as a leader in your field. It raises your profile, and there are infinitely more networking opportunities that come from public speaking. I often tell people who are looking for a job that they should be exploring public speaking because their next boss could be in the audience. You need to be able to find a podium, though, with your name on it. I think that's probably the biggest question that we get is I'd love to be able to speak more, but how do I find places to speak? How do I find out who's looking for speakers? Finding a podium with your name on it, it requires you to figure out where your peers and colleagues go to learn. Professional associations are committed to providing this peer-to-peer education so that people like you can teach other people like you what you know how to do. Professional associations like the Association for Financial Professionals, Public Relations Society of America, depending on your country, there are professional associations that you should be exploring if expanding and growing your profile as a thought leader in your industry is your goal. If you're looking to grow, say, a business that you run, or if you're looking to expand your customer base, you might need to go and find those opportunities, find the places where your customers and your referral sources go to network. You want to pitch yourself as a speaker to those events whether they are monthly meetings, they might be luncheon meetings, they might be national conferences, whatever they might be, you want to be able to find out where they go to connect and then go where they are. That's where you're going to want to find your speak opportunities. If your target is to encourage people, if your target is to be a motivational speaker, what you're going to want to do is look for places where folks go to be encouraged. Be encouraged. This is going to be places like churches, social service organizations, educational venues. Again, this is the place where you want to go to reach the people that are looking to hear what you have to share. There are lots of places to go. I think everyone probably thinks of Google as the first place. I found what Andres is doing with Speaker Hub to be one of the best. His gathering of call for speakers and organizations that are looking for speakers to participate in conferences and events is one of the best. I love reading his email weekly and seeing what he's come up with. Lanyard.com is also a good one. And then if you're looking for events locally, look for things like meetup.com, and local chapters of national associations are also always looking for speakers. Once you've got your eye on a conference or an event to speak at, your next question obviously is, okay, so now what? Now I know where I want to speak. Now what do I do? Every conference has a call for speakers. That's how they solicit proposals. In this call for speakers is where they lay out the rules and the deadlines. You're going to need to know what those rules are, and you're going to need to follow them to the letter to increase your chances. With the rules, though, you're going to want to do everything you can to stand out from the crowd because it's a competition. Several conferences that I work with receive upwards of 600 or 700 proposals for maybe 120 speaking spots at a particular conference. So your goal is to win a spot on the agenda. You're going to need to stand out, and there's 5 things that you can do in order to make your session stand out and have it going. The first thing you're going to do is have a hot topic. You're going to want your title to be something that's rather compelling. You've got a story, journey to highlight, and then you're going to want to toot your own horn. You're going to want to tell about the success stories that you've had. You can't bore people. That's the thing you've got to remember. Your topic has got to be hot. A hot topic is something that keeps you up at night. It's anything new and innovative technology, new tools or solutions. It might be something controversial. I do a lot of work in the financial services area, and one of the most controversial areas is regulatory issues, processes, procedures, things like that. And then a hot topic is always a successful story, a problem that's been solved. Did you become a rock star at your job? Did you overcome a personal challenge and now have a wonderful story to tell about it? Those make hot topics. Your topic has to be something that is informative, that is educational. It's something that a conference organizer wants to put in front of its audience. You demonstrate that you can contribute to the conference's goals when you bring a compelling topic to them. Now, this next item for success, selling with your title, is probably one of the most important. You're going to make your session title stand out if you pay attention to this little bit of copy that's right at the top. Your title is the calling card for your presentation. It's the calling card for your proposal. You need to dedicate some time to this. Oftentimes, if you're applying through a call for speakers, they may limit the number of words that you have. So you've got to use these words wisely. Where you can, you need to be clever and creative. It's the first impression that your proposal will make, and it's got to communicate why your session is important. Run-of-the-mill titles never get you really very far. So I'm going to give you some examples of some run-of-the-mill titles and then some titles that are actually more compelling that you could use to raise the interest. So a run-of-the-mill title might be How Businesses Are Combating Electronic Payment Fraud. A better title is Kicking Electronic Payment Fraudsters to the Curb. A run-of-the-mill title might be Learning Flow, but a better title is Embrace the Chaos and exercise in making the most of randomness. And I love this one. This is an actual, the better title is an actual title that we discovered while we were doing some research, but this is one for educators. Educational Teaching Techniques for the Modern Classroom. Much better. How I Cured Nose Picking with Duct Tape and Other Crazy Ideas That Improve Learning. That might be one of the best titles for a session that I've ever read, because it just screams, I've got to know, how did this teacher use duct tape to cure nose picking and improve learning? It might be something as simple as using a piece of duct tape on a child's desk and using it as a bit of a chalkboard. But the fact that she brought in this into her title really just sells her session, sells her presentation.
Maybe I could chip in for a second.
Your title needs
Aurora. Maybe I could chip in here for a second, because I so much like the title also. And I think what makes it so powerful is that it's extremely concrete. It's very, very specific and very makes you very curious at the same time.
You're absolutely right. It kind of ticks all the boxes that we talk about. It's creative and interesting. It has a bit of humor to it, but it's also very concrete. You're very clear on what you're going to learn if you come to this session. You're going to get ideas that improve from someone who has used them successfully. And so this is really just the quintessential perfect title that truly sells the session. And you can see how a title like this, without having even read what the session proposal is about, without reading the session summary, how it really could pick up the eye of a conference organizer. So Andres, you're so right. It's just, it really is quite perfect. Remember that it's a competition. You stand out from the crowd with a great title. That's the first step that you've got after you've selected your topic, to really set yourself apart from the crowd. The next thing you've got to do in the body of your proposal, this is the session summary, it's often called, the session description, it's often called, is you've got to tell your story, and you've got to know what your story is. We've all, had experiences with story. We all love a good story, and there's certainly lots of content out in the internet to tell us how important story is. The most important part, though, is that a story always has a beginning, middle, and an end, and that's what you're trying to summarize in this concise copy that they've challenged you to write. I think in the years that I've been working with calls for speakers, I don't think I've seen a proposal word count go much beyond 250 words. So you don't have a lot of space, but you've got some space to be able to story with a beginning, middle, and an end. You want to really paint a compelling picture about how you addressed a certain situation, how you solved problems, how you met challenges. In this space, as you're telling your story, you're wanting to be able to help conference organizers, and by extension, the potential audience, understand how they relate to you, how you relate to them, how your experience is like their experience. And we do that through story. You want to be impactful, compelling, and concise. Those are the three things that you want to try to accomplish in that session description. This makes the argument for why it's a presentation, and it delivers on the promise that you made in your title. So you have this wonderful title that you've created. Your session description and the story you have to tell has to deliver on the promise that you made. Your story, the story you tell in your proposal, is the commitment that you make to the conference, that you've thought through your presentation, and that you have really put yourself in the seat of someone who's sitting in the audience and what it is that they want and need to know. Within that session discussion, with that session proposal, those 100 to 250 words, you want to also communicate a journey. You want to communicate that you have a road that you're going to take your audience on. This is the place where you want to either directly or by implication imply that you share what you did that others can learn from. Here's where you want to communicate that your presentation has depth, that it can command an hour of time, that it will hold the audience's attention for an hour and maybe an hour plus. You don't want to give away all of the content that you have, because obviously you need to save that for the actual presentation deck if you're selected. But you need to be able to highlight the key points of what it is that you are going to deliver in this presentation. It's tempting to drill down and get very granular in the details, and you're going to have to really guard yourself from doing that, because of course you're very close to your story, you know it incredibly well, and you're wanting it all so that you can convince the organizers to select you. You want to give just a taste of what it is that you have to share without going too deeply.
Aurora, maybe I could
you want
chip
to
in
be able to
for a second
provide.
here, because
Absolutely.
I'm very happy that you mentioned on this slide to avoid drilling down too deeply, because I think a lot of subject matter experts have the tendency to do this because, and originally I'm a lawyer, I don't practice law anymore, but that's what I got my degree from. And I think lawyers especially, but also a lot of scientists that I work with and engineers, they tend to have the approach that I need to provide a full comprehensive presentation that covers all eventualities, whatever might happen, I need to cover that. And I think when it comes to this sort of presentation, this is exactly the problem, where if you go too deeply, you lose the audience and you lose your story. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely true. And, I think one of the things that we have to remember is that you have two audiences that you have to keep in mind. The first audience that you're trying to attract and that you're trying to convince is the organizing committee. Sometimes that committee is just a few people. For some conferences, they employ a full task force. If you give them too much, or you try to make your session proposal too granular, you will lose them, and then you never get the chance to speak to the larger audience, because that selection committee kind of stands in place as the gatekeeper. So the first group that you have to get past is that selection committee. If you're too granular, they won't get through it, they won't read it, and they won't see that your session proposal actually has quite a bit of merit. Somehow manage to get past them and you become too granular in your presentation, then you will lose your audience, and that has all kinds of other implications to it. An audience, you don't want to have an audience become bored while you're speaking. But the other thing that you have to be very thoughtful about is that your audience is going to have the opportunity to evaluate you, and the last thing you want to do is give them reasons to evaluate you poorly. So you're going to want to make sure that you strike a right balance, and then also leave an opportunity for your audience to engage with you, whether that's immediately after the session or post-conference through some type of contact. All of that's really important, and I think we have to kind of remember we don't need to throw it all on the table. We just need to throw enough on the table so that we get picked. You want to be able to write your proposal in a broad enough way so that it appeals to a wide range of audiences. And I think, Andres, to your point, sometimes when we get too granular, we end up writing a proposal that only speaks to maybe 25% of conference attendees, where you've got this selection committee that is charged with creating an agenda that has to appeal to perhaps thousands of attendees. So it's important that you write your session description and that you think through your presentation in a way that it appeals to a broad number of attendees. It's certainly not going to appeal to everyone, but it should appeal to many so that the conference can feel confident about putting it on the agenda. And certainly for you, if you get selected, the last thing you want to do is present to an empty room. So the broader the audience appeal, the more attendees will select your session to include on their personal conference schedule. You've got to make your journey clear. So between the concept of story and the concept of journey. We want to be able to see the road that you took, the process that you undertook in order to convince a review committee that you should be selected, and ultimately to entice an audience to come and hear. Now, the final thing is something I think a lot of us may have a little trouble with, and that's tooting your own horn and talking about including your credentials as to why this session should be part of the conference agenda. Results are very important because success is the payoff for any project. And I think this is very true whether you're a motivational speaker or you are someone who is looking to speaking to move your career or grow your business. What are the success measures that validate why you should be on stage? Everyone in the audience wants to do their jobs better. They want to improve their lives. They want to manage challenges better. They want to provide better service to their customers. They want to do something better. They want to gain a better understanding, even if it's a controversial issue. They want better understanding of what the issue is so that they can manage it better within their own world. So you being able to deliver results, I think, is very important. I love to tell the story of one of my clients several years ago. Worked with her on a speaker proposal for a conference that she very much wanted to present at. And her success story was that she and her team had, through a tool that they had developed within their department, discovered $6 million worth of hidden cash that the company was just unaware of. And it's a complex financial process that they developed, but they uncovered $6 million in hidden cash. And so when we went to prepare the proposal for this conference, what we did is we started with that statistic. And the proposal started out with the line, what if you could find $6 million in hidden cash for your organization? And from there, we told the story and discussed the journey that this team undertook to develop the tool and achieve this success. And not only were they selected for the conference, but they were also selected as a highlighted session. They got a room for their presentation. They were highlighted in the conference marketing. It led to other things for this particular professional and her team. They achieved some additional professional success. But it was being very confident and not being shy about tooting their own horn that led to that initial success of being selected for this conference. Be very thoughtful about what your key performance metrics are. What are the success points that you're going to point to? Even a speaker who is not coming out of this perspective, and we can go back and think about the teaching topic title that we discussed. That teacher has some performance measures, some metrics that she was able to highlight in her session proposal that, again, delivered on that promise of the title. The success points could be the difference between having your proposal rejected or accepted. Very often, especially with professional conferences, you'll have multiple potential speakers submitting topics or submitting proposals that are on similar topics. And at that point, the conference organizers have to make a bit of a decision. They need to decide we really want this topic, but which of these speakers is really going to be the best, the most compelling. If you've got 3 and 2 have no performance metrics to share, but the third one does, well, their tip is more often than not going to go to the one that included performance metrics, because there is a track record that can be measured. I think everyone wants to see that. So be very thoughtful about performance metrics and look for places to include them where you can. A couple things that I want to give you some key reminders about. Call for speakers have rules for a reason, and you can easily be eliminated if you ignore the rules. Be very thoughtful about deadlines, word counts, whatever it is that they're asking for, be sure to deliver on it. Ignore them at your peril. I know several conferences that the way that they weed out submissions that they don't even want to consider to get get the number of submissions down to a man. They eliminate all the ones that didn't follow the rules. So they don't even get considered because they didn't follow the rules. So ignore them at your peril. Proof, proof, and proof again before you submit your proposal. Nothing will make you a little bit queasy in the stomach by realizing that there was a typo, that you had a grammar problem in the paragraphs that you submitted. Proof your proposal. Get someone else to proof it for you. It's the little things that can really take your proposal down. So take care of these little small details. And then many speaker forms offer you different opportunities to include content. They might give you, say, 150 words for a session proposal, but then they give you other fields within their call for speakers form to address learning objectives or to address other key points. Never leave any of those fields. Use them to your advantage. My co-author often jokes with me because one of my driving principles when we put together speaking proposals, leave any words on the table. If they give you 150 words, use every last one of them. If they give you 2 places to include learning objectives, then don't put learning objectives in the proposal. Put the learning objectives in the learning objective space and use the words in the proposal to continue to build the argument. Don't leave words unwritten so that you use every opportunity to be able to build a case for your session. Remember that it's a competition. Many submit, but few are chosen. As I said, there's a conference that I'm working on right now for a client. The conference received nearly 700 proposals for 135 speaking spots. So you've got to stand out. That has to be your goal. Make sure that your topic educates and supports your professional goals. If you're an engineer or you're a lawyer and you're looking to raise your profile in a particular area of engineering or law, pick a topic that will be interesting to your audience, but that supports the goal that you have of raising your profile in that area. It's important to be able to measure them together and to weigh them carefully. You have to get something out of this deal other than just being picked. Be very thoughtful about story and you be creative. I think so often, especially when we're pitching events that are in our professional realm, that we feel that we can't use creativity or a little bit of humor. I think that's a mistake. I think that showing that you have a humorous side or that you can bring a bit of humor to a serious topic is important. It shows that you've been very thoughtful. It gives a little insight into your personality. I think all of those things are important. Those are the things that sell when you can't be there to speak for your proposal. I would also, by contrast, say don't force creativity where none exists. If you need help with creativity, I never above brainstorming with a friend or a colleague to build things. But if the title or the session description doesn't naturally lend itself to a creative flair or something humorous, don't force it. Just make sure that everything that you've put together is top-notch, that you've used every possible opportunity and then don't wait till the last minute. And Andres, I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories about people who wait to the last minute. I've talked with a lot of conference organizers, and the rush of phone calls that they get from people as the deadline approaches, asking for more time, it can be quite an onslaught. And you don't want to be the one who's not ready and not prepared to deliver the proposal. Once you land that speaking gig, and after you speak, you want to update. You want to spread the news that you have landed a speaking gig as far and wide as you can. Update your Speaker Hub profile, announce it, use it as an update on LinkedIn, and update your profile and your resume. Whatever, if you have professional listings with the professional associations that you might belong to, definitely do that. You want to merchandise. You want to share your presentation, use SlideShare. You might a PDF copy of your slides to a colleague or to a manager. You might use your slides as an opportunity to connect someone that you met at the conference that you want to build a better relationship with. And then make sure that you make yourself available at the end of a presentation. Connect with audience members who want to connect with you. Collect those business cards. Connect on LinkedIn. Make sure that you don't let your presentation be the end of what you've worked so hard to achieve. This is that place to raise your profile, to grow your business, your message. So the connections that you make at these events are what are going to allow you to achieve those goals. This is one of my favorite quotes from a gentleman named Peter Shankman. He's a wildly successful marketing guru. I really just appreciate his passion for marketing. And he says that if you know your stuff, you should be on stage, because people believe people on stage. Every one of us is an expert in something, and we should be looking for opportunities to share that expertise with peers, with using our expertise to grow a network, to build our business, to move a message. Oftentimes, I think we tend to shy away from opportunities. We look for opportunities to come and find us. And with public speaking, being able to speak at conferences, you can't wait for the conference to come find you. To go after the opportunity. And so if you know your stuff, and every one of us on this call does, you should be on stage. Your audience, your peer group will certainly believe you, and you will give them some compelling information to help them really change the way they do business, the way they live their lives, the way they manage their own activities day to day. Shared a lot of content. There's some additional content in my book, Get Picked. One of the things that I think might be particularly helpful is there's a lot of sample speaker proposals to use as templates. So if you're interested in the book, we'd encourage you to take for it on Amazon. It's available in print and ebook formats. And with that, Andres, we're here, and I would love to hear if there are any questions for the group that I can answer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it was a very, very good introduction to the topic. Obviously, you follow your own advice, that you didn't go too technical, but you definitely raised the interest of the audience. And we have a couple of questions here, and I do encourage everyone to type those questions in. We'll try to answer as many as humanly possible in the next 15 or so minutes. The very first one is about the specific performance metrics, because a couple of people here asked if you could give some more examples what you mean by performance metrics beyond the ones you mentioned.
Sure. So performance metrics are going to be anything that provides some concrete measurement. They are factual measurements of the success for a project. So in the example that I gave, the metric was that the company found $6 million in cash that was hidden away in the treasury. So that $6 million is concrete. It's a factual, irrefutable truth about the success of the. In the education example that we talked about, the teacher might have used the percentage of her students who, before going through using the steps that she used, were at X performance reading level, and by the end of the school year had moved up 10%. It had improved by 10% their reading performance. For say someone who is a motivational speaker, if you perhaps maybe you're talking about health and wellness, and you have a weight loss metric that you want to be able to share, or implement in say a running speed. Anything that's concrete, factual, and irrefutable is a performance metric.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Many questions coming in. Here's one about speaker fees. How would you set the speaker fees?
Speaker fees are interesting. There's a lot of discussion on Andres. I know there's lots of discussion on the Speaker Hub LinkedIn group about fees, whether to speak for free, not to for free, what your fees should be. And I think often one of the first questions you have to ask an organization that you're pitching is, do they have a budget for speakers? What is their budget? What fee are they offering? I think for a lot of us, we feel like we've got to have our fee set in our mind as to what we will accept. And oftentimes the group has a fee in mind that they're willing willing to pay. I think you also have to take into consideration what level organization are you speaking at? Are you doing something? Are you giving a presentation for a local group, or maybe a state? Here in the United States, we would do something for perhaps a state. That fee is going to be a little bit different than, say, for something in a national organization. I'd also keep in mind, and I will get into kind of some, I know the questioner is probably looking for some, a little bit more concrete around numbers. For, say, a national conference, for their, what I call the concurrent session speakers, oftentimes there will not be a speaking fee that's offered. They will offer a complimentary registration fee. They may offer, some other complimentary on-site conference perks, but they won't necessarily offer a fee. But they will offer a fee for, say, a luncheon speaker for, say, an awards luncheon that they happen to have at that conference, or certainly for their larger keynote speakers, they'll offer that. At that point, you've got to be able to assess what it is that they're asking you to do. Are they asking you to give a 30-minute presentation to motivate and encourage? That might be one thing that your fee, your fee might be one, versus something where you're actually being asked to teach something and deliver some type of workbook content. So in terms of trying to decide and determine those fees, my first question would always be, for that conference, what is the budget? What budget do they have to offer? And then you're going to have to make some decisions based on what peers in your group are also charging. You want to make sure that what you're asking for is in line with what your peers, your quote unquote competition, is also asking. So that's going to be different in different markets. It's going to be different for different situations and circumstances. And then with regard to just the question of speak for free or not to speak for free, I think it really depends on your goal. If your goal is to grow your career, being a session speaker where you don't receive a fee could really do quite a bit to help you reach your goal of securing a new position, raising your profile, building a reputation for yourself, in which case what you will receive in exchange for speaking for quote unquote free would be worth it. If you're going to be, speaking for a luncheon or something larger at a conference, then absolutely you should be looking for some type of compensation.
Yeah, thank you so much for this answer, because indeed there's a very lively discussion on LinkedIn on the need a speaker, be a speaker group, and a couple of other places. And we've also written and had some guest authors share articles on Speaker Hub itself on this topic, whether speaking for free is a good thing, or what are the considerations you should bear in mind when establishing your fees. So that's definitely an ongoing topic, ongoing conversation. Here's another question. What would you say is the number one mistake that potential speakers make during the proposal process and with their actual speaking engagement?
Andres, I missed just the first part of the question. Could you ask just the first part of it again?
Sure. So what would you say is the number one mistake that potential speakers make during the proposal process and with their actual speaking engagement?
I'd have to say during the proposal process, one of the biggest mistakes that they can make is really at the beginning, which is the topic. Oftentimes, because we're kind of insulated in our own world, the topics that are interesting to us, we just are certain that they're interesting to everyone else. And that's not always the case. Or oftentimes the topics that are interesting to everyone else and are a topic of discussion have nothing new or compelling to be discussed, in which case they don't make very good topics. So the topic itself, really, you could just really shoot yourself in the foot if you pick the wrong topic. I have had some success with some really kind of weaker topics and dressing them up well with a great title and a great proposal. I have had some success with that, but not often. And I, for the sake of time, I won't share it here, but I do have a really tragic story with one of my clients who just refused to listen, that the topic that they were bringing to a particular conference was just not, it just wasn't compelling and they didn't get selected, and it just kicked off a really unfortunate series of events for lots of people. So I think the big mistake really, we started it is at the beginning with the topic. For the actual presenters, I think what often can be one of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they don't prepare well. They may put together a fine presentation deck, but they don't prepare. They don't put the time into rehearsing so they can really feel very comfortable and confident with their content and the story and the progression of how they're going to deliver it. So that often what they end up doing is reading their slides to their audience, and then all of the great work that they did in putting a proposal together and the effort to get picked kind of gets left by the wayside because they just deliver a very flat presentation, and the audience is left a little underwhelmed, and there's no reason for that. If you prepare well, you deliver a really solid presentation that delivers on the promise of your proposal.
I think there's so many similarities with writing a resume, or as they usually call it in Europe, would be a CV, in terms of getting picked for a job, that as soon as you get past that hurdle and you are offered employment, then you need to really prove yourself. So it's a very similar process. Here's another question. How can we test a proposal? Maybe we think we have something to say, but actually we don't. How can we test it? What is your process of bouncing off ideas or making sure that you're on the right track, or the speaker you're representing is on the right track?
Sure, I think that's a great question. One of the easy things that you can do is contact the conference directly in the weeks leading up to the deadline. I have found conference education, those that are kind of responsible for overseeing this process, are very open, very willing to have a bit of a chat or an email exchange for you to kind of float your topic and ask them, is this compelling? Would this be of interest? It doesn't imply a promise that you're going to be selected, but it will at least let you know that you're on the right track. So first step I would take is to get in touch with the conference. The other thing that you can do is, all of us have a network, and you can use that network as a bit of a focus group to float the topic, float the proposal, and ask them, what do you think of this? If you saw this on a conference agenda on an agenda and you had to fill your schedule, would this be a session that you would pick? Would you attend this? Get the feedback. I think it's really important. If you aren't certain that it's a hot topic, I think it's really it's a valuable exercise to float that out to some peers, and not peers that are going to tell you what you want to hear, but that will legitimately give you some very honest and direct and clear feedback on what you've put together and how potentially you can make it better.
Right. Now here's possibly the last question, and I apologize to everyone whose question we couldn't answer now, but we'll try to find a way to tackle those so those will not be left unanswered. Maybe we'll write a blog post or do some other format. So the last question, which I would ask Aurora to answer in a minute and a half, given our respect for everyone's time, which is more important, a speaker's website with video testimonials and a demo reel, or a very professionally submitted proposal?
Oh, wow, that's really hard. That's a hard one to answer. I guess I'd almost have to weight them very carefully. I think your web presence and your proposals, both of them serve as your calling card. What I tell people is you've got to put your very best foot forward. Putting together a website with a demo reel and all of those things, I especially for starting out, can be pricey, can be challenging to put together, finding the right professional to work with, etc. But if you can make those steps, even a simple website with information about you, put out the very best that you can. A proposal that you would send out, or that you would respond, to a call for speakers that you would respond to, has to deliver on the promise of your web presence, and your proposal has to deliver on the promise of your web presence. So it's really important that regardless stage at which you find yourself in developing your speaking career, your speaking activity, is that you're always putting out your very best. If you're in a season right now where building a website is just not possible, have a YouTube channel where you can have some links for, some video to go and view, and put together the absolute best speaking proposal that you can. If you've got the resources to build a website, even a simple one, I would encourage you to do it, and make sure that any proposal that you put forward delivers on that promise. Don't make the website so glamorous and spectacular that your proposals fall short. So I think that to answer that question, it's like whatever you do, you've got to be able to put your very best forward, and if you can't, then wait until you can.
Excellent. I think it has a lot to do with personal branding, which is the topic in and by itself, something we could possibly cover. So Aurora, thank you so much. For anyone who's interested, here are the links to Aurora's book and her Twitter feed. Do make sure that you follow her, you check her site, you read the book, share your whatever you have learned from that, and make sure that you follow Speaker Hub on every possible social media channel as well. So this concludes the very first session of our masterclass, and the next one is coming up in 9 days on the 19th of October, talking about the tribe of fanatics for your speaking brand. So there we go with personal branding. And as said before, we'll be sending out the recording within a few days, and we're also going to do a transcript that's going to be available on Speaker Hub within 2 weeks. And feel free to reach out to Aurora or to us, and we'll always be very happy to help you develop your speaking career. Aurora, once again, thanks very much for being with us and for sharing all your insights.
Absolutely a pleasure.
Excellent.
Absolutely my pleasure. I loved being here with you, and I'm wishing everyone great success.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and have a good day ahead or good evening, whichever part of the world you're at, and hope to see you at the next session.